All right.
Got Silent Bob in the background.
Silent
It's
Bob.
a party in here.
All right.
Hey, welcome to Super Social Club. I'm Jeremy.
This is Whisky in the 6. I'm Rob.
Welcome to the Whisky Rant Podcast.
So I'm a little crusty,
It's frustrating.
and it's going to be a little bit of a rant.
I don't understand it. I don't know why.
Some sort of injustice.
Anyway, end rant.
Hello and welcome back to the Whisky Rant Podcast. I'm Jeremy.
I'm Rob.
And tonight we are joined by an esteemed guest, Sam, from Whiskey and SV, Whiskey in Silicon Valley. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
You brought some really cool whiskeys. Let's tell them what we got going on here.
Yeah, of course. So we have the two festival malts spirit specials from Glen Scotia. One of them is the 10-year Bordeaux cask, which is unpeated, which is kind of rare for Glen Scotia.
Super excited to try that.
Yeah, and the next one is, I think the 2022 one is the peated PX cask. That one is actually like kind of fruity and it's like, really nice.
Two LEs from Glen Scotia.
2022.
Super excited to try these.
Yeah.
Both cask strength.
Both cast strength. Yeah.
One's from 2021 and one's from 2022.
Okay. So yeah.
Yep.
All right, awesome. And tonight we're talking about what type of whiskey drinker are you? So many little categories, so many inclinations about different types of people that drink whiskey, and I think we fall into all these different stages throughout our whiskey journey of like where we start, where we're at, little like niches here and there, little annoying things that you sometimes fall into.
That's not, I hope I didn't fall into all of these categories.
I think the way maybe, I put some down here that are specific for Rob, so we'll see what kind of whiskey drinker.
Oh, I already know the ones that are specific for me. Okay, so I've glanced at the list a few times, and there are some ones that everybody knows this guy. Everybody knows a guy like this.
Yes.
And that's what's fun about this list tonight.
Right, yeah. So if we start with like the new drinker, let's even start like before that. Because like there's an inclination of whiskey that a lot of people have, and it's like all whiskey is this, all whiskey is that. What are we talking about when we talk about someone who's brand new into whiskey?
So oh my god, I'm such a huge whiskey fan. I love whiskey. Crown Royal is my favorite whiskey.
Exactly.
that
right? Yeah. So like I've had maybe 3 whiskeys and they're so good. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that was me probably really early on. Like really, really early on.
Yeah.
When I tried like Highland Park maybe for the very first time. I was like, this is the best whiskey I've ever had. This will only be the best whiskey I've ever had. And I think a lot of people really early on in whiskey, they just like buy up a whole bunch of like one bottle that they think they're gonna love forever
for the rest of their life,
and then they really soonly realize that there's so much other stuff that they enjoy even more, and they got a stockpile of what they thought was great 3 months ago, and that was totally me.
I think that happens in like every type of niche, like hobby / like collector type thing. If you're just getting into reading sci-fi, all of a sudden the next sci-fi book is your favorite book. You know what I mean? It just it kind of always lends to that. Doesn't matter what it is. Like you have to go through 10 to realize, wait, I can't keep saying that this is my favorite book.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of stuff out there, and the next one's probably going to be really good too, so I just got to keep exploring.
Yeah, and I don't know why it is, but there's this inclination that you have to like have this favorite when you start getting out instead of like exploring more.
Well, like it's titled, it's the newbie mentality.
The noob mentality.
I think you missed one that's a pre-noob, and the pre-noob is whiskey is the only drink that doesn't make me feel bad. So that's whatever is the brown spirit is my favorite.
Yeah, true. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And there actually, you're right, because we did get ahead of ourselves. There's so many like pre-noob things. There's people who just like have an inclination of what they think whiskey is. How about the all whiskey tastes smoky drinker?
Oh yeah.
There's that person. I've had so many people come up to me and be like, I don't like Scotch because it's too smoky.
Yeah. Every Scotch has to be peated.
Right? Every Scotch is essentially like, take Johnny Walker Red. That is Scotch whiskey, right? That's what people think of when they think of Scotch. They think something like peated that's super harsh and not good.
I wonder if there's something to that though, because when I first started drinking Scotch, like really got into Scotch, I would drink I don't know, Highland Park 18 and like, wow, this is so peated. Maybe too peated for me.
Yeah.
Now I drink a Highland Park 18 and I'm like,
Where's the peat?
there's no peat in this.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? So there's this threshold that you have to get over to not taste that smoke on like your Glenfiddich 12.
Yeah.
What's the PPM on a Glenfiddich 12? Like 3?
It's not noticeable.
Right? It's not noticeable to us.
Yeah.
But was it the first time you sipped a peated whiskey?
I mean,
Or a Scotch in general?
I don't know. I think I went really fast into like Ardbeg and
Yeah, so you went hard and see I took
Yeah.
a longer journey to the peated side of things.
Yeah.
I don't know, what was your experience with that?
Yeah, for the longest time it was like Glenlivet 12 or Glenfiddich 12.
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
And
so-
you do get those like nuances of peat in like something as light as a Glenlivet or Glenfiddich 12 if you have the virgin palate, right?
Yeah.
Like the non-peated experienced palate.
Yeah, and I think there's so many people that, you know, were shocked and when I told them that, you know, peated Scotch is really only a small percentage of total Scotch produced. You know, there's a whole world of unpeated Scotch whiskey out there that's up for the taking. And they're just like, what? I thought all Scotch was peated,
Yeah,
smoky.
yeah.
Yeah, the thing to that is I think I heard historically they used to dry that was the source of heat for producing Scotch whiskey. That's why that might have been like some truth to that at some point.
Sure, yeah, at some point,
Yeah.
they always used peat.
Yeah, and then, you know, electricity was invented.
Right?
And then they started drying like barley. No, I'm being facetious, but like you're right. That's I think traditionally and for the most part still in a lot of distilleries the way that they dry their barley.
Yeah, they don't necessarily use gas-fired.
Yeah.
Now it's for
Dry
effect,
method
but it
anymore,
used to
right?
be the only way to do it.
Right. Yeah. But I bet you there are still some that do it the old-fashioned way.
Yeah.
I wonder.
Springbank.
Actually. Springbank.
There
Yeah.
you go.
That's why they're still so damn good.
Yeah, exactly. What about the all whiskey tastes the same drinker? Then this can go for really anything that you talk about.
So this is not really your whiskey fan though. This is
Yeah.
your like I can't do
Yeah.
whiskey.
Right.
All whiskey tastes the same. It's all the same crap.
This is
So-
me when it comes to tequila, by the way.
That's what I'm saying, right? You can apply this to other things too.
Yeah.
Like all blank tastes the same to me.
It's
right?
true, and it's unfortunately I think it has to do with experience, right? Because once you've had like a plethora of anything, you'll see like even a vodka you can differentiate. You know what I
Sure.
mean? I don't know.
Really?
Like I mean, kind of.
Right? And a lot of people will be like, all vodka tastes the same.
Yeah.
Right? It tastes like almost nothing. It just
Yeah.
tastes like alcohol.
I think
burn.
Sam would agree.
Yeah.
So it sounds like.
Yeah.
I'm still kind of there with bourbon, you know, because all bourbon kind of does still.
And
taste the
You're
same.
in the right place.
In bourbon, yeah.
Because we kind of feel that way as
A
well.
lot of people do think a lot of bourbons taste the same, and it is kind of true. I mean, the mash bill is the mash bill. You know, it's got to be 51% corn. Obviously, bourbons taste very, very different once you
Yeah.
get into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like, you give someone a whiskey. You know, I've done it before, and I've like rattled off like a couple tasty notes. I'm like, "What do you taste?" And they're like, "Whiskey." Right? It's like it tastes like whiskey to me.
Silent Bob in the background today, and myself, we work with a friend who says that all whiskey tastes like cologne. So she has no part in drinking.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
And I'm getting a cologne note on this Glen Scotia 10.
So I'm getting a good amount of cinnamon. I don't know if that's. Are you getting that as well?
Oh yeah, this Glen Scotia 10 is very nice.
There's a bit of cinnamon on that. It's nice.
I mean, it's weird to get something unpeated. You know, this is like a Kalila experiment for me.
So I thought that these were until I actually was sitting with you guys and read that it's from the Festival of Malts. But I thought that this was an exclusive to K&L's in California. So that's not the case.
Yeah, that's not the case. It's like very much the Malts Festival.
So was this distributed across the U.S. or did
think so,
California get most of it?
I think it was probably across, yeah. But it was just in much less quantities. I mean, this one showed up at Costco as well.
Okay.
But
So the Bordeaux did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's still quite a lot of McHale left, but this one kind of sold out pretty
gone.
quick. Yeah.
And price wise, what are we talking here for price?
They're about $80 plus taxes, so
Okay.
90 US.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Great
yeah.
price.
For a
Okay.
cask strength. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right on.
Mm.
Let's continue on with types of whiskey drinker.
Yeah, because we were just on like the first one or two, right? There's a long list here, guys. Strap in.
One of my favorite phases of whiskey drinking, and that's when you've been bitten by the whiskey bug. This for me is the exploratory phase. It's when you really realize how special the spirit can be, and you're getting all these flavors out of it, and you just want to keep digging in and seeing how far the rabbit hole goes. Amazing time.
I love that.
A whiskey journey.
Yeah, it's so cool. What's cool is I wish you can time capsule it almost, and that's kind of why I started the channel, because I wanted. But I wish I would have done the channel. I wish I would have started the channel 5 years earlier, when I really started getting into whiskey, because my collection was predominantly Canadian whiskey, and I'm a collector by like a creature that needs to collect. Like it's just whatever, for whatever reason, I hate not having lots of something that I like. And that's what I was doing with Canadian whiskey, and then I got into Scotch, and I started like trading all my Canadian whiskey for Scotch. Yeah. Right. So I was like, I feel bad for everybody in this phase, because your wife, your significant other, will hate your guts.
Because the money.
They're just like flying out the door.
And just bottles are coming in left, right, and center.
Yeah.
Sam, you remember a couple bottles that really kind of turned the page for you and kind of got you bit? Yeah?
Yeah, for sure. Like the first one that really I was blown away was the Lafroig 10. And just because we were at my friend's, and I'd never tried anything like really that peaty, and he opened that, and the whole room started, it just took over the entire room. It's like you're at a campfire, and it's just so nice. And that really got me into starting to watch some YouTube videos, and then I started watching Ralphie, of course. And then went to down the whole rabbit hole.
Yeah, the Lafroig will do that, right? Because the Lafroig is you're like, what the heck is this? Like, this is crazy. Like, nothing in this planet smells like Lafroig. Yeah. Right? It's out of control how different that Scotch is.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, Lafroig is crazy. I'm going off on a tangent in my brain right now, and that's only because a silent tangent. And no, I was just thinking right. So your family's here, but you're living in California, and a lot of our viewers, I would say, probably 30% of my viewers are from California.
Yeah, huge whiskey drinking state.
Yeah,
probably because you can get such good stuff there,
and for cheap, because the wine industry there keeps the taxes low on liquor. So it's much cheaper than most of the other states. I think it's the third cheapest state in the U.S. for taxes purposes and whiskey prices.
It definitely shows, because when we shop in the U.S. or we used to shop pre-pandemic times all the time in the U.S. It was either Florida or California is where we're buying spirits from, right? Yeah. And I'm assuming that those two states probably have low alcohol tax.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
And then the selection just comes along with that.
I wonder why there's not more distilleries popping out of California. You would think coastal, southern U.S., the aging would be phenomenal.
It's a good question. Maybe it's so dominated by, grape production that...
Yeah.
Spirits.
The only one that I know that's kind of gaining some following is Redwood Empire.
I've heard of that.
Yeah.
That's and they're doing mostly bourbon stuff.
Yeah.
You know what it probably is? Maybe the water, just getting natural water in California isn't necessarily ideal for distilling.
That's probably true.
I don't know.
I mean, they're all using.
But you think Northern California has mountains and stuff, right? So you think you would get maybe some spring water that would be solid up in the northern part.
Yeah, it should be.
I don't know.
I wonder.
Interesting. Maybe some people in the comments that live in California will know more than us.
Yeah. What's the next on the category over here?
All right, so we just got bit by the whiskey bug. We're in the exploratory phase, and now it's my budget is maxed, but I'm still buying more drinker. And this is us. This has always been us for so long.
Day one.
Right?
I mean, I still do it.
Yeah.
I still do it.
This is all right, I'm done buying for the month, and then you're like, well, this came up, and this came up, and this came up. Well, I gotta have it.
Well, but it's
you have to have it.
My wife's awesome because she doesn't even ask anymore. But there was a time where she would be like, I thought you said you were done. That would be the only thing she said. And I'd be like, yeah, but Springbank 15 or Springbank this as soon as I said a certain name, she'd be like, oh, okay. Yeah. She already knows.
There's a really good meme, and it's a dude at his computer at night, and his wife's just looking at him, and the caption's he just bought 5 bottles of whiskey. Why is he researching more whiskey?
Dude, I can so relate to that. It's crazy.
Right. It's like it's a perpetual search and hunt, and it's the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. Soon you need to realize that like there's always going to be more whiskey out there, right? Like I think sometimes you have the FOMO, the fear of missing out on something, but like there's so much whiskey.
I know.
You can't buy it all.
No. You'll never buy it all, and if you try to, you're gonna lose your mind.
Yeah.
Not even just your wallet, but your mind. But it's scary because you can like train yourself to be so good for like 4 or 5 weeks, 6 weeks, which usually doesn't last that long. But then all of a sudden you get this like fit of anxiety.
Yeah.
It's like this bottle comes out, and all of a sudden like you have to do whatever it takes to get that bottle.
Yeah.
I'm still guilty. Like Son and Bob can attest to this. Like how many times I say we're sitting in the back room eating our lunch, and I'm like, "There's no more. I can't buy another bottle. That's it. I'm done." Yeah. And like literally, within 30 minutes, I'm either buying another bottle or. Like,
the thing about whiskey too, especially nowadays, is like you have maybe 1 minute to make a decision on something, right?
Exactly.
If something comes out, you jump at it or it's gone. Look at the LCBO recently.
Buy now, think later.
Exactly. Look at the LCBO recently with the stuff that's coming out, right? Think about what was the new Gold Spot, right?
Yeah.
The Gold Spot, the LCBO. It was up. They had a couple hundred bottles. You had maybe 5 minutes to purchase it, or it was gone.
Yeah.
And that's it. And that's a lot of the times you have to make split seconds decisions. And when it's something that's, limited, rare, popular, it's hard to back off,
Yeah. And my problem is also like I usually have this rule where I say if it's something that's rare and I want to definitely open it, I want a backup. So
that's right.
It ends up costing double.
Absolutely.
Now you're speaking my language.
Yeah. The backup, right? The backup.
The backup gets you every time, man. That's where it's at.
So I just think like, can I afford? Because like if I'm buying something, I just think, can I afford a backup? Because if I don't buy a backup, I don't know if I'm going to open it, and I don't want to be that guy that just like buys one and then puts it on shelf.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's got to be like 2 so I can open one, and I just double the price every time I look at a price. I'm like, okay, well, let's add tax and then multiply by 2. Can I afford it?
Yeah, that's a great point. And we definitely know. Oh, here's one that I just thought of right now. The I never open my bottles drinker.
Oh, that guy.
We know that guy.
We know that guy.
It's partially me on some of my stuff.
And it's like it's shitty because you're like you display all this amazing whiskey behind you, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, how's that bottle? Don't know.
I have no idea.
I could explain to you
know.
what happened though,
right?
Because at some point I had to convince my wife that these are investments.
Sure. Yes. And you're right. That is one thing about it. It's like you're never going to lose money on the bottle, right? You can always sell it for at least what you paid for it. So it's like.
I mean, I'm not going to sell a single one, but it was just like a phase where I was just justifying that all this money that's being spent is investment.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so although I would buy 2 of each, there was a time where all the bottles behind me on Whiskey in a Six were all sealed. Mm-hmm. Remember that? And like the heat I got because of that, bro, it wasn't worth it. I'm like, no,
gotta open it.
Forget it. I'm just gonna open everything.
Yeah.
Forget it.
Don't put it on a shelf at least if you're not opening.
Right. I think that's the key, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't. I have this bar because I want people to feel like they can pick something and I will pour for them, no problem.
Nice.
You know, when I have people down here, that's what it's here for. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you have something sealed on there, it almost has like this like you're not invited kind of feel.
Yes.
Right?
Right? Because it's like, oh, what's that? It's not open.
Right.
Like, oh, okay. Move along to something
Right.
else. Right.
So I guess that like I'm not gonna be that guy that asks for the sealed bottle. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna be like I need that one.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely not gonna even like inquire about it if it's sealed.
But you are super generous with your bottles, probably more than anyone else. Like when there's people here, you're like, guys, pick something out, anything you want.
By the way, the stuff that I just had tonight, wow.
Right? Yeah.
Springbank.
Right, like you're pouring Springbank Society releases, stuff that's, once it's gone kind of stuff. And that's
Thank
how
you so much.
generous
my pleasure.
Rob is.
Honestly, I wish I could have the opportunity to have people here more often because I feel like a jerk not wanting to ship stuff out because it's such a hassle and I've gotten so sick of that game that whenever I have the opportunity to like pour things in-house for people, it's like perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I love
Thank you
that.
so much.
This is one that was for Rob and for me, I guess, too. It's the new crack every night drinker.
Oh yeah.
And we were talking off camera.
Yeah.
It's just so fun to crack new bottles, isn't it? It's like, it's the greatest thing. Especially when you're getting together with some people.
So I'll let you speak to this first because...
Yeah, I mean, like I've said it before on this podcast that if I had the capital, I would open a new bottle every single day. I just love it. I love trying new things, right? That's the whole thing. I just want to, when something comes in the mail, when you go to the store, you come home, you just want to crack it. You just want to open it up and try it. Try new things every single day. Every single day.
Do you notice that you like something more the first time you tried it than if you go back to it?
Depends. Yeah, sometimes that's the case. Sometimes they need time to open up. So I think like the first time actually I tried this, I didn't like it that much.
Okay.
But then really opened up, and I loved it. But yeah, for the most part, because I do have quite a large collection.
Yeah.
And I probably open about 40% of them. So by your standards, it's like pretty bad.
No, but
I'm basically
listen,
like
40% you probably can't get through in like the next 2 years.
Basically, if you look, if you look at my Instagram, like it's mostly just fresh crack impressions, first impressions. Like that's like basically the only thing I have time for. So.
Sure.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah.
It's fun. It's definitely
it's so fun. There was a time, probably about 3 years, just before COVID, where every week there was at least 3 new cracks. Like at least 3. Yeah,
right?
It was out of hand.
Yeah.
There's something had to give because like COVID had to happen in order to save my life probably. But it was getting out of hand as far as not necessarily the drinking aspect to it, but the spending aspect.
The spending aspect,
right?
Yeah, for sure.
It was a lot.
Yeah, it's like you have, 200 bottles open that you could choose from. But you're like, I don't want any of that.
Yeah.
And you always just like, what can I open now? Right?
But how many times did you guys get a message from me and it was, oh my god, you got to try this bottle, it's fantastic. And then the second time I tried, like, okay, well, pump the brakes. It's not as good as I thought it was. That excitement died down. The dopamine is like now settled and I'm just trying this like a real person for the next time. And
Yes, and that's like the reviewer in you too, right? Because like if something is hyped up, you already have this inclination that it's going to be good, and you really have to step back from like preconceived notions and just focus on the whiskey. Like, is it actually good?
Yeah.
That's why I like doing blinds, man. That's like,
Yeah, exactly. And doing blinds is the best way to do that too.
Yeah.
I
found that there's a little bit of a hack when it comes to blinds, though. I know this is another tangent and we don't probably have time for it, but when something is peated in a blind, it wins almost every time. It wins almost every time, even if it's not necessarily your favorite. It just, for whatever reason, it just dominates the blind to the point where like you either have to do an all peated blind or an all non-peated blind. I don't think you can ever cross.
Would you say just because you are drinking multiple things at once and the peated whiskey will stand out because it's bolder than the rest?
Yeah,
I
think your palate and your nose just like is getting a little bit too overwhelmed, and the only thing that really sticks out is the peat.
Yeah, I can definitely see that for sure.
Yeah,
100%. Next on the list, the I only drink blank whiskey drinker. This is like, the Macallan guy, the Ardbeg guy.
Yeah.
I only drink Johnny Walker. There's so many people that only drink Johnny Walker.
Yeah.
They've really put themselves in a box and really never venture out.
Yeah. Do you know any guys like this?
Yeah, a lot of them actually. Yeah, we have some in our group that are very much like only into specific brands and like that's it. Like and they're even within that brand they're like specifically like I only like this subset.
Right.
And, yeah.
I think like for Scotch, it's maybe more of like a collector. Like I only collect this brand. They might venture out and drink other things here and there.
Right.
But they like Macallan is like right. Like I belong to a Facebook group of Macallan collectors. Like all they do is just collect Macallan.
Right.
So there's definitely lots of those subcategories of people who just like collect.
I think I can like understand where some of these guys are coming from. Like from a cost point of view, if you trust a brand, you can drink it blind no matter what. You can buy it blind.
Yeah.
That's key, right? Like you can buy it without tasting it, knowing it's going to be good. And that, I think the only time I could ever say that about anything is obviously Springbank. Right? But yeah, it would be hard for me to do that. I think if I ever like retired Whiskey in the Six and wasn't reviewing, wasn't doing the podcast anymore, I might get to that one day.
Yeah, it's never gonna be me because I just like exploring like so much different things. Like even like outside of whiskey too, like exploring different agave distillate stuff. You know, mezcals, tequilas, rums.
Yes.
Anything like there's so much good variations of spirits out there. Even like wine. Like I don't like wine. I don't drink wine, but if I'm with some people and they crack a bottle of wine, I'll try it. I would love to try it.
Yeah.
And I've had some exceptional wines, even though I don't like wine.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I get that. And yes, I would like to try different things, but to like go out, spend $300 on a bottle when we're not reviewing it, when we're not, like, it's tough. It becomes much more difficult. So I feel for, you know, Silent Bob in the background over there who we've influenced to spend all his side cash on whiskey.
What about the whiskey specific subcategory only drinker? Like the I only drink bourbon kind of guy. I only drink Scotch kind of guy.
Okay.
Okay, here's a question.
And I will. You tell me if this is true.
Yeah.
The Scotch guy will tend to try other things. He'll drink, like you said, your tequilas, mezcals, rums. You know, we've seen Ralphie review grappa. We've seen Roy review rums. We've seen like Scottish Scotch guys drink other stuff.
Yeah.
The bourbon dude doesn't do that.
Yeah, and that was
What is a
my
very good explanation.
That was
for
gonna be my
right?
question. Yeah.
Because Scotch has a lot of variety and a big range of tastes and aromas.
Huge.
But bourbon is like very prescribed, and it's like very specifically for the American palate, which is they just like sweet stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's very very prescribed. So
Careful. You're treading.
No, but he's got a point, right? Like even Jason from the Mash and Drum was on our channel not that long ago, and he said that they're trying to create new bourbons that literally are dessert. That's exactly what he said.
Right.
So there's truth to that. There's truth to the fact that they gravitate towards a very sweet spirit.
Yeah.
And bourbon is what gives them that. You know what I mean?
And my question to you, which you've already answered, is a bourbon drinker more likely to venture outside of bourbon versus a Scotch drinker more likely to venture outside of Scotch? And I think that it's definitely the Scotch drinker
for sure.
is... I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a Scotch drinker who doesn't also have bourbons, world whiskeys, Canadian whiskeys, Irish whiskeys in their collection that they rotate through as well, whereas a bourbon drinker, you might only see bourbon in their collection.
Well, for sure.
And that's it.
Yeah, I mean, 90% of their collection will be bourbon.
One of my favorite things to watch on YouTube is bourbon channels trying to drink peated Scotch and just cringing at it and just be like, ugh, it tastes like ashful, and just
So
like
funny.
hating it. It's always a good time.
I found the best way to convert bourbon drinkers to Scotch drinkers though is to get them to drink cask strength sherried whiskeys.
Yeah.
That's like a good
You're
conversion
getting
point.
the sweetness
Yeah.
there.
Unpeated
Yeah.
cask strength.
I feel like Irish whiskey is something that bourbon drinkers venture into more so than Scotch.
Yeah,
That's
I
true.
think that's the easier transition. My thing with Irish whiskey, and I like it, there's some that I absolutely love, but I feel like it tastes younger for the age than versus Scotch. Like you're trying a 15-year-old Redbreast. Put that up against a Glenallachie 15-year-old. Blind and guess their age. I guarantee you're not guessing the same age, and I guarantee that the Irish whiskey is gonna come out younger.
Yeah.
Right? It's just I don't know what it is, and I think I find that a little bit with bourbon as well. Right?
Yeah. I mean, the laws of bourbon restrict it to, New American Oak charred,
Yep.
51% corn. And, most places, add a little bit of rye, maybe wheat.
Yep.
But for the most part, it's majority corn, and unless you're finishing it, you get very similar stuff.
I think it's also just the fact that it has to be like a new oak, barrel,
Sure.
versus something that has had something in it and whatever. So it just
Exactly, right?
just dominates.
I think the biggest, and people are gonna hate me for saying this, but the biggest problem with bourbon is the corn. It's corn grain is just not that interesting. It's sweet. That's all it is.
Yeah.
It doesn't add nuance. It doesn't add complexity. It doesn't. Whereas a rye whiskey, an American rye, is fantastic. Like the spiciness you get out of it. You'll get all that sweetness and all that like cool stuff that you get out of bourbon, but you get that element of.
I think having said that, next time I'll bring you some Frey Ranch. Bourbon. That stuff is amazing.
Is it really?
It's so different than like, the usual bourbons. It's got this like crazy grassy note to it that
cool.
like it's just like
Yeah, definitely gotta venture into some like more niche craft distillery. Yeah,
good stuff.
I think I'll just end this with one: malting barley gives you the most amount of flavor out of any grain ever. You're not gonna dispute that with me. And the Scotch whiskey category adds so much different elements. Like, look at the two whiskeys we're drinking right now.
Same distillery.
One is peated, one's not. One's in a PX cask, the other's in a Bordeaux red wine cask. Very, very different.
Drastically different.
Hugely different.
Yeah.
Right? Like, this is something that bourbon doesn't necessarily give you. This category of Scotch is so vast of what's possible in the profile.
There is no spectrum in bourbon that will result in a differentiation like these two can achieve. There's not. They're like, these are not far in age. They're from the same distillery.
Yeah.
They're both aged in a type of wine cask. One is peated. This one is like barbecue notes and like some light coffee notes, some nice like fruit. That one is apple cinnamon.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're just drastically different.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's what makes them so good.
Yeah.
You know? Well, since we just told everyone how it is, let's get to the next category: the know-it-all whiskey drinker.
Let's be honest, no
Right.
bourbon guys are watching this channel, watching our stuff.
The know-it-all whiskey drinker. Do we know this person? Have you met them before? The know-it-all.
I think we've been that guy sometimes. Like earlier on, I feel like I tended to be that guy, and I'm so much. The more you know, the more you realize how little you know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's nice to like be able to like look back and reflect on that and be like, you were an idiot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, see, like, I know a couple of guys from Toronto Whiskey Society who have crazy palates, who have tried so much stuff. And I feel like maybe they come off as more of a know-it-all drinker because they'll throw out references to, like, some independent bottling single cask that was, like, way better than whatever generic shit that we're drinking at the time.
Right.
Or they, like, they've been to the distillery, which we'll get to, that's another category coming up soon. Or like, they just like, they have this knowledge, and I'm one to admit that, like, I don't have extensive knowledge of whiskey like some people do, right? Like, even like the process of making whiskey, I've said before, like, name every process in the steps to make whiskey. I'm gonna leave something out. I don't know. I don't care about that.
That's
like,
the thing, is we don't care.
Yeah, and there's some people who, like, they'll geek out to, the science
Behind
and the
it.
chemistry in whiskey, which is really cool, which is something that, like, I don't know everything, and I don't really care to know it.
No.
But they can sound like they know everything when they drop shit, when they're talking, like, worm tub temperatures and stuff like that, right?
It's the equivalent of, having to drive that big massive car.
Yeah.
It's like, the syndrome you get when you're compensating for something.
Right. Yeah. When someone's talking like they only like the profile of a certain, like, shape of a still, you're like, okay, let's relax.
Let's pump the brakes.
Let's relax. But yeah, that's where whiskey gets snobby,
Are these types of guys prevalent in the U.S. right now? Are you finding this in
Not so much on the science nerdy stuff, right? I think it's mostly on, like, I've tried every single, like, BTAC or for every single year, and
Right,
it's
right,
like more of that kind of, like, braggy.
Sure. Like, I've tried all the Pat Beans.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
None are
Don't know
good.
too many science nerds. Yeah.
Let's move on. Next category.
Yeah.
The baby pour drinker and the over pour drinker.
Okay, so we have a subcategory to this one as well.
You used to be both of these things.
I used to be a too big pour.
We used to say the Rob pour,
The
which
raw pour.
was
It was a thing.
an
It was a
over
thing
pour.
on the, it was an over pour.
But there's a difference between pouring your own whiskey and pouring someone else's whiskey.
Well, I was pouring
Bigger
my
ones.
whiskey into other people's glasses,
Which is fine.
Right. So I the Italian way, like you got to give a little too much. Like they said that's enough when you gave them the fourth scoop of pasta. You got to give them
right.
two more.
You're too skinny. Eat.
Right. So it's the same. Like that's how I felt. But knowing what I know now, it's better to have smaller pours so you can try a bunch of different stuff.
For sure.
Right? A bunch of different bottles. So yeah, I think, and this is not true for everybody. It's not a blanket statement, but I do think you tend to be an over pourer when you're earlier on in your journey, and you tend to start like cutting down the pours as you get like a little bit more experienced.
Sure. Sam, do you have experience with someone over pouring one of your bottles for themselves?
No, I think like not particularly. I guess my friends are pretty like they're all probably the opposite. Like I actually like offer to open stuff for them and stuff, and they're all like super,
Yeah. A lot of times it happens by accident, right? Like someone will like pour like ooh. But some guys, we know those guys who like oh yeah, this is your favorite bottle. It's like glug 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 glug. Thanks, appreciate it.
Well, I can understand because probably like as I've gotten older, I think I just have like a very small group of friends that I hang out with,
right?
And like I'm now beginning to like have more of like my whiskey community friends and like inviting them over. So I think like we just met and you just invited me to your house, and like if you do that a few times, you're definitely going to get an overpour.
Oh, for sure. I've experienced my fair share of overpours. It's like at the end of the day, I put things on the bar that I'm okay to be without at one point. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So like if it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. And early on, I used to be a little bit more careful about what I put on there. Now I just put everything. You know what I mean? Like it is what it is.
It's a testament to your generosity.
Well, I try. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not gonna happen to the point where like there's been a couple times where I just got a bottle.
What if I got here and I just like poured like half of that?
Yeah, I would cry inside. But I'd be like, sure, man, if you're gonna drink it, then
no, you'd be snatching that glass and pouring it back into the bottle. You're like, no.
What if I didn't drink it?
It depends what it is. It really depends what it is. But I mean, obviously everybody has their limits, of course, right? But I don't know.
All right, we've got one more, but before we get to it, let's talk about these Glen Scotias, because these are actually like drinking so well right now. What are you saying about these, Rob?
Man, okay, so my first experience with the 10, I wasn't like wow over the moon, but tonight it's drinking really, really nicely.
Yeah.
Like I said, apple, cinnamon, nice like baking kind of spices I get out of that one. No peat, obviously. So I drank that one first because this one is pretty peated. I wonder what the ppm. Does it say what the ppm is on this?
Good question. Then check.
I'll add to the 10-year-old that I do get this like nice like candy cane kind of sweetness to it. Not
I
like
get the
mint.
candy cane for sure.
Yeah, it's like it's got some really nice sweetness to it.
Yeah.
It's weird to have a Glen Scotia without any peat, right? It's like it opens up other elements of the spirit that maybe you don't necessarily get because the peat's kind of like in the way of it.
Yeah. Because it's so rare, I'm just gonna get a bunch of backup. I already I think have like 4 or 5 of these as backups. I'm gonna buy some more.
It's one of those ones that like for the price, it's worth having.
I think
like so. you finish one, you crack another one, you throw it on the bar, right? Like it's that's really good. It's really, really good.
Yeah, I think it's the first and only unpeated version they've done.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
What's the ABV on it?
50 something. What is it?
The ABV on the 10-year-old, we're looking at 56.1.
56.1.
Yeah, up there.
56.1. Yeah, really. I mean, this is my second experience with it. So, if I had to score it tonight, that's a tough one.
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably go like 87, 88 though.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. I was right there with you. I'm probably 88 on that.
Yeah.
Just because the uniqueness of this is really intriguing to me.
When you said candy cane, like the next sip, like that little sip that I took, I got like a spearmint almost kind of.
It's weird the power of suggestion. Right?
Yeah, it really is.
Does really like change your perception.
Or like even, you ever have that Trident or whatever like type gum, dentine, whatever.
Yeah.
Cinnamon kind of gum, and it has that like that's kind of what I get there.
It reminds me of those little what is it, like circular mints that you get in like hotels, like the like cheap motels or something.
Yeah.
but in a nice way. I don't know.
But in a good way, like not in an off-putting way.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. This peated one though, I mean, I obviously lean towards peat these days because it just I don't know, but I'm not necessarily getting a ton of PX. I wouldn't say that this is PX heavy. but it's delicious.
You're right. The peat does dominate this for sure. And the PX, you'd expect all of this sweetness. It seems like a refill PX to me. It's more subtle.
Does it say first fill?
You know, the first time I had this, I thought it was actually like very, very peaty. But then like I had it next to a Lafroig in a blind, and I was like, whoa! Like and this feels like it's fruity. It's like not peaty at all.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it is a first fill barrel. It might not be for a very long time. Is it entirely? It's finished. It's only finished.
It's
Yeah.
finished.
So that'll explain that.
Yeah.
Just so much going on with it though. It's not just a peat that's great
Lots of
about it.
fruity stuff in it as well.
It's
Right?
fruity, and it's like the finish lasts forever. Like it's a long finish. Something about this 8-year age statement whiskey is like there's something really special about like everything I've had that's labeled 8 years old has been really good. I can't think of one bad one.
You're regretting not buying the Ardbeg 8-year-old from Kensington Wine Market.
I do have
for
it.
$8,000.
Oh, that one, no.
$1,000. What is this?
It was like it was a single
It's
cask.
an official bottling single cask Ardbeg at 8 years old for $900. Was it $850?
It's like just under $1,000.
That's crazy.
It was absurd. It was absurd.
Never seen such craziness ever.
Apparently that's a real thing though. Like if you go to any store, that's what you're getting them for. So
Wow.
yeah, that's the unfortunate part. But this is delicious. I'm
Okay.
giving this one an 89 for sure.
89?
Maybe even a 90.
Wow.
Oh wow.
I really like this one.
Now, see, I'm gonna score it less than a 10.
Yeah.
See, I'm like 86 and a half, 87 on the 8-year-old. I'm a point more on the 10.
Wow.
I don't know. I've been leaning towards
There you go.
heated stuff lately. So,
There you go.
Yeah.
Do you want to throw scores for fun on these two?
Sure. I mean, you guys like do very granular. I think my palate is still, very rough. So I would say I slightly prefer, I think, the peated one.
Okay.
And I scored them both between like an 8.5 and a 9. So
Okay.
pretty
Yeah,
much
so we're all right there.
Yeah.
We're all like,
Yeah.
if you see them for, you said $80 before tax, 100% buy.
Oh yeah.
100% buy these for that price.
For sure.
For
And,
sure.
Yeah. I mean, if I can grab, when I go to the U.S., if I can grab one of these, I will for sure. 'Cause
Yeah.
Just to have a backup of that. Like, I mean, we can't get anything like this right now. You know?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they're all limited, right? So I don't think you're going to be able to find this particular one anymore.
Yeah.
But,
Probably not.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
Really
Glen
good.
Scotia, obviously, we've had really good stuff from them, and they're known as, a great Campbelltown distillery. So
I think they have another one of these coming that's a 12-year cask strength Oloroso. And that's
Oh,
I
yeah.
saw that today.
So, yeah.
I
the
saw that
brown
today.
box.
Yeah.
it sounds
I
like it's
definitely
going to
wanna
be
get that one.
amazing.
Can't imagine it not being great.
Yeah.
I find that Glen Scotia has improved in the last 3-4 years. I don't know if there's something to that. It doesn't make sense because these are older, obviously, than 3 or 4 years old. But something's changed
Yeah.
because I used to buy the 15 and the 18, and I was never a big fan until like
Recently, that 18 from
You marked 18
2021.
more than the spring.
Yeah, oh, yeah,
Springbank 18.
it smoked that
Yeah.
Springbank 18.
Interesting.
That was 2021, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
the
that 2021 Glen Scotia 18 is a phenomenal.
That
pour.
2021 18 I found at Costco for like $110.
Yeah.
Wow.
Amazing.
That's a great deal.
Yeah.
That's
All
a great
right,
deal.
the last category, and let me know if you fall into this category or if either of us have fallen into it at some point in time. It's the back in my day whiskey drinker.
I think we're approaching that. We talk that way about price, right?
That's the thing, because like we're super
just
young.
price, right?
We're super young as far as like how much time we spent with whiskey. Obviously, there's people who have been drinking it their entire lives.
Yeah.
Like Ralphie comes to mind, right? But we've already seen so much change from when we first started into whiskey to where we are now with price, with distilleries changing profiles.
Right.
We do say sometimes, like, back when, back in whenever, this was way different. This was way cheaper. This is way better, etc., etc.
How about back 5 years ago when we were buying a case or two of Longrow Red for us and our buddies?
Yeah.
Like we could literally provide for all of our friends just by calling up one of our friends in another province and
Right.
saying, hey, can we get 2 cases of that Longrow Red?
Yeah.
Now nobody can do that.
Right.
I don't know anybody that can do that.
And like I'm thinking back of like when we spoke with Ralphie on the podcast, and he was talking about buying Brora, back in the late '90s, early 2000s for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah.
Right, and like having it accessible everywhere. Like look at the guys who like were drinking Pappy Van Winkle back 10 years ago when you could get the 15 on the shelf for $75 or $65, whatever it was. Right? Like that was not that long ago.
It's not long ago.
That's
at
not
all.
that long ago.
That's the scariest part is how many times I wonder how many times I walked past stuff like that. Stuff like Springbank, 12-year-old, 100 proof. Like how many times in our lifetime did we walk past those and not buy them?
Just look at Weller. Right? Weller 12 on the shelf at the LCBO, $39.99,
Yeah, it was dirt cheap.
$45.99.
The 107 was $35.
Yeah, recently my buddy sent me a picture from the duty free in Detroit. You know how much a Weller 12 was?
It's like 30.
$368 for a 1 liter bottle.
Ridiculous.
Absurd.
And it went from like Weller being, a bottom shelf mixer, good value at
Yeah.
the time,
Yeah.
to being something that's super sought after in the secondary
Have you
market.
tried the Weller Special Reserve recently? That is terrible.
Not
whiskey.
recently,
It's
no.
terrible bourbon.
Yeah,
it's
it's
so
good.
bad.
It's not good at all.
It's so bad.
I never liked it, to be honest with you.
No.
I liked the 107. I liked the 12 was what it was. It was okay. It was good. But yeah, I never liked the Special Reserve. So even when it was $30 or whatever it was here, I never bought it.
Yeah. Yeah. Right? It sat on the shelf. Like
Yeah.
the 107, like no one ever touched it.
No.
You could always go into the LCBO and get it for $45 or whatever it was.
Yeah, it was a really good price. It got popular and then it started getting harder to get. Now it's impossible to get.
Yeah.
Now it's a lottery bottle.
Yeah.
Price
Back in-
aside, though, there's like a lot of stuff about quality as well, right? That the old timers always say that this used to be
Exactly.
so much better.
Yeah. Yeah,
So-
and like look at like every distillery.
Yeah.
Right? Like does every distillery fall into the category where it was better back in the day?
I wonder.
Macallan.
Macallan 100%.
Macallan for sure.
Bowmore.
Highland Park.
Bowmore for sure.
Bowmore for
Highland
sure.
Park for sure.
Yeah.
Right? And that's just our interpretation of drinking it for what, less
10
than
years.
10 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Those three for sure. I mean, there's Bowmore still comes out with a knock it out of the park.
Yeah.
But for the most part, their core range is not good.
Right.
Right? Macallan, same idea. Their core range, it's not that it's not good. It's just not affordable the quality doesn't match the price.
Yeah.
Highland Park. I haven't bought a 12-year-old in a long time, but it just doesn't seem like the price keeps climbing, and they're not really doing anything differently that I'm excited about. So,
Yeah.
there's a few, but I will say, everybody says Springbank was so much better back in the day. It's still so good.
Yeah.
It's still so good. There's a lot of distilleries. Like, I have a funny feeling that there's some distilleries that are better now than they were 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Is Ben Romick better now than they were before?
I think so. I remember trying Ben Romick 5 years ago, and I wasn't as big a fan. And I'm much more a fan now than I was before.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think there are a few distilleries that are doing a better job now than they were before, and they have the stuff stashed away to make up for those years where they maybe weren't bottling at the right ABV or
Sure. Absolutely.
you know.
Leave us a comment down below. What type of whiskey drinker are you currently in, and have you fallen yourself into these categories at some point during your journey? I'm sure you have at one point or another.
And don't be ashamed. Like, for most, how many of these did we say? Yeah, I was there. I did that.
Probably all of us. Yeah, all of us
like
at
pretty
one
much
point,
every,
at one
except for
point
a
or another.
couple, maybe.
Yeah.
And
And if there's a category that we haven't mentioned that you think you're a part of, leave us a comment too.
Yeah.
What did we miss? What kind of categories are out there? There's so many. I'm still.
there's probably more.
Sure.
Yeah, and we're gonna think of some and be like, oh shit.
Yeah, right.
We should have done that.
Sam, thanks so much for joining us
Yeah,
tonight.
thanks
so much for
really
having
much
me.
appreciated.
This was so much
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah,
A lot
this
of
was
fun.
great.
I look
And-
up to you guys, so it's been great.
we love having you here, man. That's awesome.
Thank you so much.
Subscribe to the channel. It's Whiskey in SV, Whiskey in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
You do really cool blind tastings and lots of stuff. So
Thank you.
just early in the days in the channel, but yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
check
a
it
lot.
out.
You're getting a lot of really great stuff, like stuff that we really like to drink as well. So, yeah, check it out. It's very cool.
Link in the description down below, so go subscribe to that. And thanks so much for joining us, guys. Really much appreciated. Have a good one.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.